nerve 10. There are some nerves that you should just pick in seconds. Facial 7, important to the face, Bell's palsy. 10, vagal nerve. That's the only nerve that if a question asks you, what cranial nerve, if it's damaged, are you going to have problems all through your body? Your stomach, your hearts, everything is going to mess up. It's vagal nerve.
Vagus nerve, because it's the longest, right?
And it's the wandering nerve. It wanders
Yeah.
down into the body. So that's cranial nerve 10. You should take 2 seconds to answer any question on cranial nerve. It carries parasympathetic. It slows down your organs. It makes you digest food. It does all the parasympathetic. So you should not waste time on that. The other nerve is G, glossopharyngeal. What does glossopharyngeal mean? Glosso, pharynx.
Tongue,
Pharynx is your
throat,
throat, tongue, throat.
right?
So that nerve you may mix up with hypoglossal.
Hey, how you doing, Lotus?
12. You may mix up glossopharyngeal with hypoglossal, the last nerve, 12. How do you differentiate? Because both have gloss tongue. Glossopharyngeal is number 9. Hypoglossal is the last H. Okay. O, to touch and feel. Very good vagina. Ah, heaven. H, 12. Hypoglossal. How do I remember the difference between the two? Which one is for taste of the tongue? Glossopharyngeal, your pharynx, and the back end of the tongue taste is glossopharyngeal. Okay. Hypoglossal, underneath the tongue. Hypo means under, glossal, tongue. I remember that by thinking of, if I have my tongue, underneath it, I use it to move my tongue, right? So if this is my tongue, hypo underneath the tongue, and then I use it as a muscle to move the tongue. Does that make sense? Hypoglossal. So hypoglossal is for moving. Glosso is tongue. Hypoglossal moves the tongue. Glossopharyngeal is for taste of the back of the tongue. Because glossopharyngeal, pharynx, it's the back. Okay. It's the pharynx. So taste for the back of the tongue is glosso, tongue, pharyngeal, your pharynx. What about taste of the front of the tongue? Some questions may ask you taste of the front of the tongue. The anterior 2/3 of the tongue, facial nerve does that.
Okay.
So for your tongue taste, the anterior 2/3 is facial, the posterior is glossopharyngeal. So that's a run through your cranial nerves. If you have a question on that again, you'll see it. Next question.
The oculomotor, trichillar, and the Abinson and.
All right. So you see, the last answer I gave, the formula I gave answers this next question. What do those 3 nerves have in common? LR6, SO4, R3. That answers this question. That's the 3 nerves you just mentioned. LR6, 6 is abducens, right?
Right.
That's lateral rectus of the eye. SO4, superior oblique is 4. What's cranial nerve 4? Oculomotor. Oh, no, sorry. O to trochlea, okay? So you have trochlea, LR6, SO4, R3. R3 is what? Oculomotor. The 3 nerves you just mentioned were what?
It says.
Is it all motor nerves?
No,
they all move the eye.
They all move
That's that formula I just gave.
Eccentric eye muscle move the eyeball.
They all move the eye.
The
formula I gave you.
Motor, trochlea, and
abducens,
and are cranial nerves that innervate the intrinsic eye muscle, move the eyeball. You know, reading all these medical terms make you seem like you're illiterate.
So that's why I'm saying, the way I'm teaching you this stuff, I'm giving you formulas that answer questions ahead. So the formula I just gave you answers this next question. LR6, SO4, R3.
So the next one is
cranial nerve, LR6, cranial nerve 6, SO4, superior oblique, cranial nerve 4, and R3, cranial nerve 3. LR6, SO4, R3. Those are all eye movers. And this question was asking, do these 3 cranial nerves move the eye? And that's what they do.
Okay, which of the
Write that
following?
formula down.
Yeah. Uh, which of the? I'm recording this, by the way, too. This is being recorded.
All right.
Uh, which of the following is not which of the following is not descriptive of the optic nerve? A. Sensory. B. Cranial nerve. C. Move the eyeball. D. Vision. It says
All
which
right.
of the following is not descriptive of the
That's a
optic?
that's a very, very simple question. We
Right.
just mentioned that earlier. We said olfactory is sensory, it's coming into smell. Optic is sensory vision, is bringing it in. It's not an eye mover.
Right.
Movers that are 6 or 4 are 3. Once again. So this question is asking you what option A.
So the nerve, the cranial nerve to move the eye is a completely different nerve than the nerve to actually
The three
make
nerves.
vision.
To move the eye are those 3 nerves, LR6, SO4, R3. Those are the ones that move the eye.
Okay.
Optic is sensory. It just brings in information of what you see from inwards. So it's sensory. It's only sensory. The movers are LR6, SO4, R3. So when you look at those options, it's the one which is not. The optic nerve is for vision. Yes, that's correct. The other option there is it's sensory. Yes, that's correct. What was the other option again?
Uh, sensory cranial nerve, move the eyeball, vision.
It's for vision. It's a cranial nerve. It's sensory. All those are correct. Moving the eyeball is wrong. It doesn't do that.
Okay.
So that's the answer. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm late.
No problem. We all late.
We got the message. I was in the show.
All right. Next question.
Uh, which of the following is descriptive of cranial nerve? And I'm trying to find the word. I don't know.
I'm sorry, which one you doing?
We're doing
A study guide?
we're doing this. We do know we're doing the test bank, and we're doing question
Oh.
number 9.
Chapter 11.
And he's just chapter 11, number 9, and we just going over. He's basically teaching us how to answer the questions, and how to go through a process
Basically, process of
of elimination.
elimination.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Both to eliminate correctly. Yeah.
So let's see. I'm a little bit dumb here. I'm trying to find out what this Roman numeral is.
Let me go get it.
All right. Well, let me see. 8. Okay. Uh, which of the following is descriptive of cranial nerve 8? A. Motor nerve. B. Spinal nerve. C. Vestibular cochlear nerve. Or D. Concerned with vision.
All right. So what's cranial nerve 8? To touch and feel. Very. V. And the last V, we know that cranial nerve 10 is, we can't miss cranial nerve 10. That's the one you can never miss. That's vagus. So the other V is vestibulocochlear.
Right.
So that's the
Yeah,
answer.
Vegas is
It's 10. You can't miss.
is huge, right?
It's huge. It's important.
It's the longest one. I mean, not huge. I mean,
It's the wandering nerve that goes all the way into your abdominal area and
yeah.
control your heart, slows down your heart,
Yeah.
controls digestion. It's the one, if a question asks you which cranial nerve do you cut and you're going to die, that's vagus nerve. It's a very important nerve. So you can't mix that up. That's 10. Other V.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to interrupt him. Were
Mhm.
we talking about the um the cranial nerves?
No, we're
There was,
doing.
I huh?
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to print out some thing that you see that,
Yeah.
but it's like I'm asking the Mr. Prince, Dr. Prince the question. Is it 13 nerves or just 12?
It's 12. And the formula I just gave them, I don't know which formula you use, but I gave them a formula that I use. O, to touch and feel. Very good vagina. Ah, heaven. O. So it's 12 of them. O. Olfactory, optic,
Mm-hmm.
oculomotor. To
Mm-hmm.
touch. Trochlear, trigeminal. To
Mm-hmm.
touch and feel. Abducens, facial.
Mm-hmm.
Very good vagina. V, the last V we remember is vagus, 10, the important one. So the other V is vestibular. Very. G, glossopharyngeal. The last V, 10, vagina. Ah, heaven. Abducens, hypoglossal.
Okay.
So it's 12 of them.
Because I see a paper that talk about acoustic, and I don't know. I
Adding
think
it as, I don't know, some rare text may add acoustic as a cranial nerve, but that's
that
not
is a cranial nerve too.
to my knowledge. I don't know
Oh,
what maybe that's something new, but not to my knowledge.
yeah. Okay. Thank
Acoustic.
you.
Yeah, go ahead, Ojo. Next question.
Which of the following is most descriptive of the pharyngeal nerve? A, concerned with the sensation of smell. B, innervates the muscle of the eyeball. C, motor nerve supplying the diaphragm. D, sensory nerve concerned with balance.
Okay, so I am not sure when you covered or whether you covered what's it called, the different plexuses. I don't know that they ever give you
I
a lecture.
don't know. I don't think we did.
Brachial plexus, lumbar plexus, sacral
Yeah,
plexus.
he went over this, but it was brief.
Briefly. Okay, so let me run over it briefly again. Mm,
No. Don't not briefly. Give us in kind of depth so we can understand and grasp it, please.
but I'll make it concise. So when we are talking about nervous system, first off, something that we mentioned when we started, when it was only Ojo online. Um, so let's look at the whole nervous system. So you have the nervous system is divided into two parts: central and peripheral, right? Central is otherwise called CNS, peripheral is PNS. Central is everything that's within the dorsal part of the body. The body has a dorsal space. The dorsal space is within your brain and within the bones of your spinal cord, of your vertebral column, right? So that's the central nervous system. It's within your skull and the vertebral column. Central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord. That's it. Everything outside of that is your peripheral nervous system. So far, so good. So everything, once it comes out of your vertebral column, going to your arms or whatever, it's your peripheral. Once it comes out of the brain, out of the skull, coming to your eyeballs, to your ear, all that is peripheral, right? So you have central and peripheral. Central is within the skull and within the vertebral column. Now, peripheral is everything going outwards or coming in. So when we look at our peripheral nervous system, that's all the nerves networking your body that come out and go. The peripheral nervous system has two aspects. Sensory is anything that's going towards the spinal cord, is carrying sensation from your, maybe your fingertips or from your eyeball or things that you heard, taking it to the brain or taking it to the spinal cord. So peripheral sensory is coming in dorsal root, goes into the back of the spinal cord. That's how it gets there. Okay, so that's where you have dorsal root ganglion. That's the part before it gets to the spinal cord. Motor comes out. Motor means to make an action happen, okay? To make a movement, to do something. So that's motor. Motor comes out ventral from the front of the spinal cord. It comes out and it goes to your muscles, goes to your glands. So your glands secrete juices to digest food, goes to move your eye, and so on, right? So your spinal cords are called mixed nerves. Your spinal nerves, sorry. Your spinal nerves are called mixed nerves. Why do we call them mixed nerves? Because they have both motor and sensory. Now, how does your brain send information to your eye or receive information from your eye? To send information to move your eye, it's going to come out through a motor nerve to move your eye. To receive information that you saw, is going to go in through a sensory nerve to go to the brain. All right. So this is just communication. Motor is coming out to move, sensory is going in. Your cranial now. From your brain, the nerves that supply your head are called cranial nerves that come out of the brain are cranial nerves. Some go down, like the vagus goes down. But all the nerves that come out of the brain are the cranial nerves. And all the nerves, so cranial nerves are an example of peripheral nervous system because it's coming out of the brain. So that's an example of peripheral nervous system. The other example of peripheral nervous system coming out of the spinal cord are spinal nerves. So you have 12 cranial nerves and you have about 31 spinal nerves. Do you remember this stuff? So 12 cranial nerves.
We just read it. We're reading that chapter now.
Now, 12 cranial nerves come out to deal with all the innervation of the head and also the vagus going down, and 31 spinal nerves. Cranial nerves and spinal nerves are both parts of your peripheral nervous system. And they now supply your all your body. So if spinal nerves are example of mixed nerves, they have both motor and sensory aspect. So the motor is coming in towards the spinal cord and then going up to the brain. The sensory is coming in towards the spinal cord and going up towards the brain. And the motor is coming out of the spinal cord and going to your muscles or glands to move. Your cranial nerves, you have some that are mixed and some that are not mixed. And we talked about that earlier today. The mixed ones mean they are both sensory and motor. They are doing both. And examples of mixed ones are your facial nerve, your trigeminal nerve. These are mixed. Some of your cranial nerves are just one thing. They are not mixed. They are not both. They are one thing. Examples of cranial nerves that are one thing are optic nerve. It's not mixed. It's not both motor and sensory. It's only sensory. It's only bringing vision to the brain. Another example of a cranial nerve that's only one thing, it's not mixed, is your olfactory nerve. It's only bringing smell in. You don't move your nose. It's only bringing smell in. So olfactory is another example of one thing, not mixed. Now, so we've understood that. So now, your spinal nerves go to supply all parts of your body. But when they leave the spinal cord, those mixed nerves, when they leave the spinal cord to supply your body, at some areas, just like when you're driving on streets, in some areas when you're driving, you have junctions where you gather together, where maybe the roads meet and then you merge into big trunks to go, highways and stuff. When the spinal nerves, all of them, when they leave the spinal cord, 31 of them, in 4 areas, they join together to form plexuses. So that's the plexus. So instead of maybe just one nerve going to your hand, one nerve going to your leg, in some areas they say, you know what, let's join together and form highways and then now divide to go to the different parts of your body. So there are 4 plexuses. These are junctions on your peripheral nervous system. The first is your cervical plexus. So the nerves leaving this cervical area, your neck, they join together to work together. The second plexus is your brachial plexus. The nerves leaving next, your brachial area, they go towards your arm. So that's the second plexus. So those are areas where the nerves join together and work together. So the first is your cervical plexus, which is neck, next to your brachial plexus. The other ones below, and if you look at the spinal cord where those plexuses are, the spinal cord is a little bit thicker in those areas. So the other ones below are your lumbar and sacral. Lots of times we join it together and we say lumbosacral plexus. And those are where the nerves kind of join together to, work together. And those supply your lower limbs and your pelvis. So far, so good. So the names of those plexuses are basically where they are. So now that we've understood what plexuses are, which are areas where the nerves come together, what are the important nerves that come out of each of these plexuses? And that's where this question comes from. from your cervical plexus, there are a bunch of nerves which come out, like axillary nerve and something. Of all those nerves, the important ones and the ones that they would ask you, the most important nerve that comes out of your cervical plexus that you want to remember is your phrenic nerve. The rest, axial nerve or whatever, no question looks for those. But the nerve that's important from that cervical plexus is your phrenic nerve. Your phrenic nerve goes to your diaphragm muscle. So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the nerve that goes from your neck, it goes to your diaphragm to control the muscle for your breathing. If by any accident you cut your phrenic nerve, your diaphragm will be paralyzed and you will not be able to breathe. So that, depending on the next question, another question may say the phrenic nerve is from which plexus? The plexus is your cervical plexus. It's coming from your neck. Brachial plexus now, the second plexus. What are the important nerves that come from your brachial plexus? As you can imagine, there are nerves that are going to your arm. So if you just think of the nerves that are there, who can give me names of nerves that would likely come out of your brachial plexus?
Your fingers.
What's the names of the nerves?
I'm not sure.
Who knows names of nerves?
The name of the nerves that go to the fingers.
That go to anything arm area. Brachial plexus is supplying this whole arm area. So what are the nerves you know in your arm area?
Axial nerve.
Axial nerve is actually the first plexus. It's the cervical plexus. Give me another one.
Is it medial?
Median nerve, yes. That's one of
Pivotal?
them. It goes to parts of your fingers and stuff. Median nerve, it goes to like your this area. What other nerve?
This I'm not good with. I'm still trying to remember the 12 cranial nerves. So I'm still trying to.
Okay. What other nerve do you think are in your brachial area? Arm. There's no nerve you've ever. Let me give you a simple one. The simplest one. Median is even more hard. That's going to your fingertips. That's a little bit hard. I mean, to remember, you have to know it to remember.
Right.
Do you know this area where you touch and you feel that shock?
Humerus.
Yeah. This little place where you touch it and you feel that vibration in your little finger.
Yeah.
What nerve that is? Nobody knows.
Humerus, no?
Nope. Humerus is not a nerve. That's the bone. That is your ulnar nerve.
Oh, no, okay.
That's your ulnar.
Yeah, I heard that.
That's the funny bone. That's the ulnar nerve. So that you touch it, you feel it going to this side. So that's going here. That's the ulnar. So you have your ulnar nerve, your median nerve, and the big nerve that covers all this back area is your radial nerve.
Yeah.
So nerves are the nerves that supply the arm area. Median, ulnar, and radial. You want to remember those. Those are coming from your brachial plexus. Median, ulnar, and radial. All right?
So you essentially, like, you answered the question. So number C, that it was going to be motor nerve supplying the diaphragm, right? So,
Phrenic nerve, and it's coming from the cervical plexus. That's the major nerve of the cervical plexus. Now, if you're imagining anything, if any question is asking you any nerves that come from the lumbosacral plexus, then you think of nerves that deal with the lower limbs. And those would include your femoral nerve to your femur, your leg area, obturator nerve, pudendal nerve to your reproductive organs and stuff. So those are the other names of those nerves in that area. But you'll be able to eliminate, if any question goes in that direction, you can eliminate plexus and nerve because you know, at least you know these major three, ulnar, radial, and medial, which are what? Brachial plexus to the arm, cervical plexus, phrenic nerve. All right, next question.
well, this question I could kind of solve on my own is which of the following is least descriptive of the olfactory nerve? A, sensory. We know it's a sensory nerve. Concerned with the sense of smell. We know it's concerned with sense of smell. C, cranial nerve 1. We know that's the first cranial nerve. Or D, moves the tongue. So we know it's D. Okay, the olfactory nerve does not move the tongue. So that's
What nerve moves the tongue?
I'm still on.
Who
Is
remembers?
it 3. No, not that. Not that.
I talked about it earlier today.
Yeah, you did. You went over the nerve, but I'm not.
Is it the hypoglossal something?
Hypoglossal, I told you. Glossal is tongue.
And the other one with the glossal as well, right?
That is not, that's sensory of the tongue. Hypoglossal, like I said, hypo underneath the tongue.
Right.
Imagine something underneath the tongue is going to be moving the tongue. It's just in the muscle moving. Glossopharyngeal is taste, posterior of the tongue. That's pharynx. The taste buds, you have taste buds on your pharynx and glossal. Tongue is glossal. So glossopharyngeal. So if you see questions like that, you should answer them in 2 seconds. All right. Next.
This is a weird question. It says, antibiotic-induced ototoxicity damages which nerve?
Answers, give me answers.
Huh?
What's the answer? What's the answer?
What are the options?
It says antibiotic-induced oxotoxicity damages which nerve? A, cranial nerve X, B, facial nerve, C, tubulocular nerve, D, cranial nerve 2.
2.
So I'm not sure
I think
the
it's
answer of that.
C.
I'll just go with facial nerve, but I'm
No,
not.
it's a vestibular nerve.
Cochlear. That's
Mr.
ear.
It's a weird question.
Very.
Antibiotic-induced antibiotic-induced what?
Induced auto.
Oh, the answer is right in the question. It's when he was reading the question.
Okay.
That's how you know the answer. Auto. What's auto? Spell the auto. O-T-O.
OTO.
Auto is ear.
Oh. Antibiotic-induced ototoxicity damage.
So that's where the answer was hidden. The answer is hidden in the question. Antibiotic.
So it's like it's like he having like an ear infection.
Yeah, and you use an antibiotic.
Antibiotics like moxicillin to
Moxicillin. Autotoxicity is ear. Toxicity means it's toxic for it. So
antibiotic causes damage?
It may. So this is antibiotic-induced ototoxicity. Toxic to the ear. Auto is ear. Toxicity.
Okay.
Toxic. So the answer is right there. So now what that question is actually, you're supposed to be able to read, to know the words there. So you're supposed to know what cranial nerve that is, which is vestibulocochlear. Vestibule and cochlear. Hearing is cochlear, vestibule is balance, so vestibulocochlear nerve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So the only problem you had is auto. What are other words with auto that we use normally in the ear? We say auto, like doctors who deal with ear are called auto and so on.
I just know them as ear, nose, and throat.
Yeah, but it's auto, but that's ear anyway. Auto is ear.
So with some of these questions, it's just basically because this, based on what you're saying, this is a medical terminology question more than anything.
It's terminology. Because you can have antibiotic-induced so many things. You know, the auto is ear.
I don't know how to pronounce this word.
Auto is
Ptosis.
ear, so on.
Ptosis of the eyelid and dilated and fixed pupils reflect pressure on which nerve?
So who knows that answer? Your doctor, your teacher taught you that one. Who knows what answer? Ptosis, eye is, what are the other symptoms?
Ptosis of the eyelid and dilated and fixed pupils, which reflect pressure on which nerve? It's optic, A, optic, B, vagus, C, oculomotor, D, facial. My guess would have been optic, but it's C, oculomotor.
Why would you ever think optic? Why would you ever make such wrong guesses?
Because I would assume.
What is optic?
The eye.
vision.
Vision. Is it sensory or motor?
Sensory.
sensory. So how can you damage a sensory nerve and have a motor effect like the,
Right. Yeah.
stuff like that? So you should be able to rule that out quickly. It's a sensory nerve. It's only bringing vision, no movement problem. So the only other eye nerve that you're left with there is the oculomotor, which moves the eye, and that's when you have ptosis. It also deals with the eyelid. It also moves the eyelid. So your eyelid ptosis means the eyelid is drooping. So you see some people with halfway open eyelid, drooping. The eyelid is drooping, and then what the other lateral? Well, what did they say happened to it? Those two things: oculomotor, eye mover.
Which of the following nerve prevents extension of the hip and flexion of the knee? Is A, auxiliary, B, phrenic.
So you see, that's why we covered what we just covered.
Right.
Axillary, we know where axillary is. It's brachial plexus going to the axilla. Axilla is your armpit.
Right.
So that's the only nerve I didn't mention. When I was mentioning the brachial plexus nerves, I said median, I said radial, ulnar, and then the last one is axillary. And that's going to your axilla. So axillary is up here, so that's not the answer. The second nerve that you have is phrenic. We know phrenic is cervical plexus going to your diaphragm. It's not that. What's the next option?
Sciatic.
And the next one.
Median cubital.
All right. So we'll choose sciatic. Sciatic is an example of one of the nerves from the last plexus, lumbosacral plexus. Where is your cubital? Who knows where your cubit is?
Is it in the arm?
It's the armpit. Thank you. The
Yeah.
cubital armpit. So that's going to be a nerve over here. So you can rule out all the wrong answers and left with sciatic, even if you don't know what sciatic nerve is. Sciatic is the longest nerve of the body. And some women or some people have, after delivery, they have sciatic pain. You may, after delivery, you might have pain in your hip and stuff.
You said the sciatic nerve is the longest nerve in the body?
Yeah.
Okay.
So some people after
You know
delivery,
when you people have sciatica,
sciatica,
like
that's a nerve that comes from the lumbosacral plexus, and it supplies the legs and moves, bends the knee and whatever else. But by elimination, at least to answer this question, you're eliminating that the other nerves are other areas. You understand? Other plexuses. So you're eliminating, and then you're left with sciatic nerve, even if you don't know. Does that make sense?
yeah. Damage to the common perianal nerve causes A, crutch palsy, B, deafness, C, foot drop, or D, inability to breathe.
All right. So this is another example of elimination. A common peroneal. We are learning the nerves too. So if either you learn the nerves or you're able to eliminate one way or the other, you're able to answer the question right. So let's assume we do not know where common peroneal is. Let's look at the other options. And that's how easy these questions actually are. I hate to say this. Let's look at the other options and see how easy it is to eliminate them. A is what?
Crutch palsy.
Crutch palsy. Where's your crutch?
Between your legs.
Your
What is
crutch?
what is crutch palsy? It means
Palsy?
That's when the crutch presses against the armpit and damages the axial nerve. That nerve that goes in the armpit. I don't know the name of it.
it goes
Crutch palsy. It's when you use a crutch and you put too much weight on your armpit.
Yeah.
And it damages the nerve that goes to your armpit.
Thank you. So
But I think it's crotch.
which is not, even that crutch
It's palsy of the crotch.
right.
Yeah.
That's not your foot. That too is not your foot. But so he's right. So crutch, when people use crutches, you damage your axillary nerve, and then you have palsy. You have a drop.
And what happens when you get crutch palsy? It damages the arm.
You damage the nerve, so you have basically damage to movement of the arm. Yeah, palsy. It's a unique. There are different palsies. Palsy means it's not working anymore. So
nerve damage.
Nerve damage, yeah. So crutch palsy, he has explained it. What's the next one? So we're able to eliminate that. or
Deafness.
maybe not. Deafness, somewhere else. Deafness is cranial nerves. Somewhere else, that's going to be vestibulocochlear nerve.
Foot drop.
Peroneal. Foot drop.
I don't even know what the hell. What is foot drop?
Foot drop means some nerve is damaged
Uh-huh.
and you're not able to lift your foot up, so your foot drags on the ground. And
Okay.
when people are walking, their foot will be dragging on the ground. It's dropped. So let's assume that's the right answer. Let's look at the next one if it's easy to eliminate.
Inability to breathe.
That's your phrenic nerve.
Right.
So you're able to eliminate at least 2 or 3. If it was me, I would have been left with crutch, palsy, and foot drop. You understand? So you're able to eliminate. Now he explained what crutch palsy is. When you're using a crutch, so we know that's one of these nerves in the brachial plexus. So you're left with foot drop. So far, so good.
Right.
So common peroneal nerve. Now let's now get the answer by knowing what it is. Common peroneal nerve. I did not go through a lot of the nerves of your lumbosacral plexus. But if we go through a little bit more, the nerves you have there include pudendal nerve, which is going to your reproductive organs. Pudendum is that area where your reproductive organs are. So you have pudendal nerve. You have femoral nerve, which is going to your femur and stuff. You have sciatic nerve, which is going down your leg for bending your knee and stuff. And then at your lower leg, you have things like common peroneal nerve. You have tibial nerve, and so on. So anytime you have a chance, look at the nerves. You want to look at the nerves of the different plexuses. Just look that up online quickly, and then you'll see the names of the nerves there or in your textbook. So this is a nerve of the leg. Peroneal is your leg. Okay, that's where peroneal is. All right, let's go ahead. Next question.
My bad.
Next question.
The ulnar.
The ulnar.
Oh, you got it.
Oh,
Go ahead.
the ulnar, radial, and median nerves supply the. You mentioned ulnar earlier.
All right, so that's brachial plexus, ulnar, median, and radial. So those supply what? The arm, the hand, the arm.
Yeah, the forearm. Mhm.
Which option? What are the options?
Forearm and hand. B, breathing muscles. C, jaw. D, hip and thigh.
So you see how simple that question is now.
Yeah, this looks easier.
It's easy because you can eliminate everything else.
And especially because you explained it earlier, the ulnar.
So that's testing your knowledge of your brachial plexus nerves.
Yeah.
Cervical is breathing. Cervical plexus is phrenic breathing. So that's easy. Next question.
A spinal cord injury at the level of C2 causes A, hemiplegia and blindness. B, paraplegia and deafness. C, quadriplegia and an inability to breathe. D, ptosis of the eyelid and dilated and fixed pupils.
So who wants to choose an answer for that? What do you think that would be and why? C2. What level is C2?
C2 is
Right. It's right there.
Yeah. The
Stop.
back.
C1, anything higher than that is C1.
Right.
So if I break your neck,
Yeah. If no, let's say it
what I'd
properly.
like to do.
If you break your neck, don't
What I'd like to do.
my neck.
If I break your neck at
Uh-huh.
C2, are you going to be paraplegic on one side or quadriplegic? Would you be able to
We'll be paralyzed from that point down, right?
so would you be paraplegic or quadriplegic?
You'll be the one that can't walk, and from
Is
the
that quadri or para?
see, I don't know. No, you just I don't know.
Is it
Quadri.
Brown, yeah.
Quadri, because that's all 4 limbs.
All
The
four.
higher up you
Oh, yeah.
you
Correct.
injure, the
Correct.
more the more
Okay.
affected.
Okay.
You're going to be quadriplegic. You will not be able to move any of your 4. And then the other
But
thing
if you break, okay, say you broke the middle of your back, it'll go from you have the control up.
So you'll be what?
You'll be paraplegic, which means you can't move your legs,
Your
but
leg.
you could move your arms.
Oh, okay.
And then hemi is what? One side.
That's more stroke, no?
Just one side. So it's English. So this question is English, and then you answer
So the answer is C,
quadriplegia.
quadriplegia and inability to breathe. So that's why those people on those things
Phrenic
need
nerve
machine.
is going to be cut. Remember, your phrenic nerve, I said, comes from the cervical plexus. So you're high enough to cut that too. So you cut your phrenic nerve too. Phrenic nerve, your cervical plexus is C2 to C4.
Okay, number 19.
So you've cut that too. So you can't breathe also.
An intramuscular injection into the buttock is given in the upper outer quadrant in an attempt to avoid injuring which nerve? I don't see the answer, but I'm going. It says common perennial
All right.
forensic.
We just answer the question with common peroneal. Remember where that is?
Common perennial. No.
So that's where your leg. So that's your leg.
It's not your foot, right?
And it causes foot drop because it's your leg. So, and it's your leg to foot. It's going from your
But the
leg.
answer here,
Remember,
it
leg is
says sciatic.
Hold on. Remember, leg is not thigh.
Right.
Know that, right? I mean, as a kid, you think your leg is everything, but leg is the lower part.
Okay.
Then you have the thigh femoral parts, which is the upper part, and leg is lower. Common peroneal is leg. It's down there, giving
But
foot.
it says
What are the other options we are eliminating?
phrenic,
Phrenic, we know, is somewhere else entirely. It's not your buttock.
femoral. That's the femur.
So we may want to choose femoral or
Well, femoral, is that the front? Isn't that the front of the leg?
front. It's more of the front. That's
So why would they be avoiding the
femoral nerve.
buttock? The buttock doesn't.
So this is a tough question. You may have to eliminate or choose between femoral and sciatic. Okay, but it's sciatic that it affects, like the answer said. But this is one where you may be like, is it femoral or sciatic?
So it's a little tricky.
It may be a little bit tricky, but it shouldn't. It's a little tricky. But it's sciatic nerve. That's sciatic pain and stuff. So that's sciatic nerve.
An area of skin innervated by a spinal nerve is called A, plexus, B, tract, C, dermatome, D, gyrus.
All right. Now I'm not sure whether your professor taught you this, but let's look at all those four and explain what those four are. A is what?
Plexus.
Plexus. We've talked about what plexuses are. They are the groups, they are the areas, four of them, where your nerves come together. That's why I keep explaining these things, because these are the things that help you with the next questions. Plexuses are the areas where the nerves come together, like highways, superhighways, before they go to the final place they are going to, right? So we say there are four plexuses: cervical, brachial, and lumbosacral. Lumbar and sacral combined, lumbosacral. So we know that's not the answer to that question, right? So we know what a plexus is. What's the second option?
Tract.
What are tracts now? Tracts, we spoke about earlier today. Tracts, so we just discussed the brain, and we said central nervous system is brain and spinal cord. Peripheral is everything outside, right? We said sensory are all your peripheral that are coming towards the spinal cord, and they come ventrally, or they come dorsally. And we said motor is everything that's leaving peripheral, that's leaving the spinal cord, going to do motor, going to make an action happen, right? Motor is going to make a movement happen, motor, right? So those are part of your peripheral nervous system. So if you had a drawing of your spinal cord, or your nervous system, you always look at that. You see brain and the spinal cord, all that is sensory, and then everything outside is peripheral. Now, when your sensory goes in through the dorsal root, I'm repeating this several times, the sensory goes in through the back, dorsal root. And on its journey, there's a ganglion, dorsal root ganglion. Ganglion means a group of cell bodies outside the central nervous system is a ganglion. It's like a lot of the cell bodies are gathered together. After the ganglion, it now gets into the spinal cord. If you look at an image of it, you'll see these things. So all the sensory information, when you touch something, it goes through your sensory, the feeling of what you touched, goes through the dorsal root through the back of the spinal cord, and it gets into the spinal cord. Once it's gotten into the spinal cord, that is now central nervous system. Okay. Once it's entered, once it's crossed to the bones into the spinal cord, it's now central nervous system. When it gets to your central nervous system in the spinal cord, the next thing is it wants to go up to your brain, right?
Right.
So it wants to go up to your brain. How does it go up to your brain? It goes up to your brain through ascending tracts. Ascending means going upwards. So the information within the spinal cord goes through ascending tracts towards your brain. And then you know, oh, I touched something. The ascending tracts, anytime you find them, most questions, if you want to know what the ascending tracts are, the names let you know that they are ascending tracts. So these are the tracts that answer that option tracts. That's what tracts are. Most options, it's easy to know ascending tracts by their names. Their names let you know that they are going up from the spine. So examples would be spinothalamic tract, meaning from the spine to the thalamus of the brain. Spinocerebral tract, from the spine to the cerebrum of the brain. Spinocerebellar, from the spine to the cerebellum of the brain. So for most of your ascending tracts, other than the dorsal column is one of them, but it's not, the name doesn't really show that. But for most of them, you can know your ascending tracts by their names. Spinal to the brain, spinal to some part of the brain, spinal to some part of the brain. So far, so good. Then, if you now want to move your leg away from when you were touched, you're going to send that information from the brain downwards through descending tracts. The descending tracts include, their names will let you know what they are. Descending tracts could be cerebrospinal, from the brain to the spinal column, from the cerebrum to the spine. It could be corticospinal. It could be rubrospinal. The last word is going to be spine. When you see the spine as the last word, it's a descending tract. If spine is the first word, it's an ascending tract. So you can use that to rule out questions on this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So descending tracts are going to be something to the spine. Ascending tracts are going to be spine to something. So we know what our tracts are. So the answer to this question. Next option.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The next is dermatome.
All right. And what's the last option?
Gyros.
All right, gyros. We know what a gyros is, right? The parts of your brain that
the folds
have the folds that allow you to have more space to think.
Yeah.
So the only one. So if you're eliminating, you be able to eliminate dermatomes. So let's Google it, or if your books, you'll see this picture that's lines. It's all over.
Hey, you're breaking up a little bit.
Dermatome. Dermatomes are, sensory areas are mapped out as dermatomes. So dermatomes, the professor would have told you that if you want to know where a person has an injury to the spinal cord, you just touch a part of his body, and if you touch along the dermatome, the person says, I'm not feeling it, you know, the dermatome corresponds to a part of the spinal cord, a nerve, to a spinal nerve. So all your spinal nerves go to different dermatomes. So just by touching a dermatome, you can know that a person has broken his back in a certain area, or his nerve is pinched, or he has a prolapse or a hernia in a certain part because of the dermatomes. I don't know that you remember this lecture, the lecture on this.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he went over it, but so briefly that I don't remember.
I would remind you
yeah,
about.
he did. He did went over it briefly.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So dermatome,
everything briefly.
Your whole body, it's like a miracle of your body, right? Your body, each spinal nerve which comes out. So let's imagine thoracic nerve, right? Or let's say your, or let me give you my example, for instance. I have injured some nerve of my body. I don't know which nerve it is, but after a car accident, I found out that a part of my nerve was, when the spinal nerve comes out, it's crushed. So there's a hernia or a prolapse. If you have a hernia or a prolapse of your discs, it's going to be pressing the spinal nerve, and that spinal nerve will have a problem. Now, what happened to me, I was having severe pain here. Severe pain here, meaning it's the spinal nerve that is going to this area. Some people who come to the hospital may tell you, oh, doctor, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm having some pain in my foot or something, right? If you're having pain in your foot, very surprisingly, if you stroke the person at his waist, he'll be like, I can't feel it. When he says he can't feel it at the waist, that's the dermatome. That's the area of the body. When he can't feel it at his waist, without having to do any MRI or any study, a doctor will be able to know that because this guy can't feel this when I stroke him on his waist, his spinal cord, he has a problem at a certain level of the spinal cord. It could be L4. And without even doing a study, the doctor will know that you have damage at your lumbar nerve 4, because that is where it supplies the waist. So when your nerves come out of your spinal cord, they are going to a part of your body to make your body move, but at the same time, they also carry sensation from parts of your body in lines, and that's the dermatome. So without having to even look at the spinal cord, just by seeing that this area, if I just touch you here and I say, you don't have feeling here, I'll know that your spinal nerve number 8, T8 is damaged, and that you're also gonna have problem maybe moving your fingers. So it's a map of your body, sensory, which corresponds with damage to different parts of spinal cord. So that's the way the body is arranged that way. So one thing that you should do is look up dermatoma map, and you'll see all the lines, and you'll see they've made a map of it, and they show each cranial nerve number to each line. So once you just touch a person, maybe here it's T1, below that is T2, below that is T3, and so on. So there's a map, dermatoma map. And dermatome, to answer this question easily, what does dermatome mean? Dermatome is dermatology, it's your skin, right?
Yeah.
It's your skin. So dermatome is an area of your skin that has sensation. What was the question again? Yeah.
In an area of the skin innervated by a spinal nerve is called.
So even without anything, you should be able to answer that question, even without knowing derma.
Yeah, skin. You have skin.
All right. Next
To
question.
evaluate the cranial nerve, the person is asked to stick out the tongue, and the nurse notes any deviation in the position of the protruded tongue. I remember the professor talking about this. A, trigeminal. B, hypoglossal. C, facial. D, olfactory.
What's the answer?
Is B. It is because of hypoglossal is tongue.
All right, moving the tongue. It's a tongue mover. Remember, these kind of questions, you were lucky with this one. They could have mixed it up and they'd have put glossopharyngeal, and then you may be confused, which is it? Hypo is the one underneath that moves it. Glosso is taste of the posterior aspect. Next.
A lumbar puncture is done by inserting a needle into the A, dural sinus, D, central canal, C, arachnoid villus, D, subarachnoid space. We did this question already. It's D, subarachnoid space.
Subarachnoid
Ojo.
Space.
right?
Ojo.
What's up?
OJ, add in LJ.
LJ wants you to add in.
LJ.
So that one is easy, right? You're not gonna go all the way. I mean, if you take the needle all the way into the central canal, you'll get CSF, but you don't want to go there. So you just go into the subarachnoid space. Remember, we said the subarachnoid space is filled with central cerebrospinal fluid, right? That's what's there under the arachnoid layer, subarachnoid space. Let's look at the other options there. What is dural sinus?
Dural.
Is that sinuses in your nose or something like that, right?
No. Dural sinuses are in your dural matter.
In the brain?
Yeah.
And they're tiny holes.
They are holes. They are the dural layer. Your meninges, you have 3 meninges, right? Dural, arachnoid, wispy, spider web, and pia, right? The dura is the durable one. It's the tough, fibrous one on the outside of the brain. Now, the dura has sinuses, like in the middle, it has sinuses, which are spaces inside it. And your cerebrospinal fluid goes into it. How does your cerebrospinal fluid get there? Let's run through how cerebrospinal fluid is made. It's made in your ventricles. I'm repeating this again. It's made in your ventricles by the choroid plexus.
Right.
Cells of the choroid plexus that makes it are called the ependymal cells. When it's made, it runs in the ventricle. It comes out of the ventricle and goes down the central canal of your spinal cord. The other thing it does, it also goes outside to cushion, because the use of your CSF is 2 things. One, that's how nutrients and stuff get around your brain and spinal cord. The second use of your CSF is it cushions your spinal cord and brain. So it comes out from some apertures, and then it surrounds the spinal cord. So if your spinal cord is moving, it's not banging against the bone. So it also surrounds the spinal cord. And where does it do that? In the subarachnoid space. So it moves in that space underneath the arachnoid layer, between the arachnoid and the pia mater. The pia mater is the one on the spinal cord itself. It's also the one on the brain tissue itself. So it runs in that subarachnoid space. It runs around in that subarachnoid space so that when they hit your head, your brain doesn't hit against the dura mater and the bone. It's a cushion. Okay, so the CSF is a cushion. Now, when your CSF is done, how does it leave the brain? It goes through certain things called arachnoid villi. So it's in the subarachnoid space. It now goes through arachnoid villi, which are parts of some big balls, which are called arachnoid granulations. A granule is like, granules of
Like
sugar, granules, sand. So these are arachnoid granulations, and they have villi on them. Villi are like finger things. So it goes through arachnoid villi, through arachnoid granulations, and it escapes out of the arachnoid layer. It goes above it. And what's above the arachnoid layer is what? So it's leaving, it's done. So when it goes above the arachnoid layer, through the villi and through the granulations, where is it going to get to if you go out of the above the arachnoid layer? Where would you
Of
go?
the arachnoid layer.
If you go above
The dual sinus?
you get into the dura, and the space between the two. Dura has 2 layers. There's a space between them is the dural sinus. So you get into the dural sinus, and from the dural sinus, you drain into the superior vena cava and to the heart, and that's the end. That's the death of spinal fluid when it's done. So it's made in the ventricles, goes in the central canal, comes out, surrounds the spinal cord, surrounds the brain within the subarachnoid space. And when it's done, it goes through the villi, arachnoid granulations into the dural sinuses. And from the dural sinus, it goes to the heart through the superior vena cava. So that's the story of it. But when you want to do spinal injections, or you want to get spinal fluid, you go into the subarachnoid space. And the area where you do that in patients is L4, L5. That's the lower back. Why do you do it at L4, L5? Because the spinal cord ends at L1, L2. When it gets to L1, L2, it forms a cone. That's the end of it at L1, L2. The cone, I don't know if I remember the name, but the cone is called conus medullaris. That's the end, the tapering end. It's like a cone. And that's where the spinal cord ends at L1, L2. After it ends, it now fans out. The remaining spinal nerves that are coming to supply your legs, they fan out like a horse's tail. It now fans out to supply the rest. It's done. It's done at L1, L2, but you still want to, L1, L2 is what? Your lower back, right? You know your vertebrae, L1, L2 is your lower back. But after you've ended there, you still want to get nerves to go to your legs. It fans out like a horse's tail. So the name of that is cauda. Caudal means end. Equina means horse. Equine is horse. So cauda equina is the caudal end and then the horse's tail, and that's the rest, that's the end. But the spinal cord ends at L1, L2. So if I want to give you a spinal tap to get your spinal fluid from your subarachnoid space, I'm going to go below L1, L2, because I don't want to poke your spinal cord and paralyze you or make you numb. So I'm going to go below that. So for a spinal tap in the hospital,
So below that, so below L1 and L2,
you want to go below that. So you go safe below, you go to L4, L5.
There's no risk of paralysis?
Paralysis, no. So you go to L4, L5 and go into the subarachnoid space and get your spinal fluid or inject anesthesia or whatever. So you go to L4, L5. In a little baby, you fold the baby over forwards. When you fold a person, even an adult, you fold the person forward. When you fold the person forwards, it's going to pull the spinal cord even higher. So you don't touch it at all when you put your needle in. So you go to L4, L5. So that question, the answer is what? L4, L5, subarachnoid space. Go on.
The receptor reflex controls A, posture, B, the amount of light that enters the eye, C, body temperature, D, blood pressure.
All right. Who knows the meaning of or where the word baroreceptor comes from?
I don't have a clue. If he went over this concept at all, it was very brief.
So we talked about the spinal cord and the brain, right? And I talked about motor and sensory. Under sensory, we're having a whole lecture right now. We are covering a whole span of things, so we are going on further. Under sensory, there are sensory modalities. Sensory modalities are the different things that you sense. So when we say it's sensory, what do you sense? You could sense temperature. You could sense pressure. You could sense, what else? Chemicals.
Right.
You sense touch. You could sense pain. But sensing those touch and pain may be included in the other list. So you could sense mechanical. So this is just common sense here. Sensation that is felt could be mechanical, or it could be chemical, or it could be temperature, right? If it's mechanical, under mechanical, it may be pressure. Yeah. Under chemical, could be carbon dioxide, could be any chemical that you're sensing, could be taste. Taste is an example of chemical. So let's look at the names for these type of sensations. Chemical. You're not breathing well. You have low carbon dioxide. How do you feel that sense? That sensory input that's coming in is going to be an example of a chemical sense. It's a chemical. Checking for carbon dioxide in your blood. The other modalities could be temperature. You have nerve endings detect that. Nerve ending detects temperature change. You're burning, someone is burning your body, you detect it. You feel temperature, sensory goes up and you detect it. Under mechanical, you have things like pressure. Pressure, the word for pressure, I'm sorry if you don't know this, but the word for pressure is baro.
Right.
A device that checks pressure in the environment.
Barometric, barometer.
Barometric. So based on the English to that question, the answer is yeah, baro is a pressure sense. Now, what are the pressures that your body detects? Baroreceptor. Receptor means receptors are the different things used to detect. Chemoreceptors detect chemical changes in your body. Baroreceptors detect pressure changes in your body. Nociceptors detect, noci means pain. Pain changes in your body, nociception. Chemoception, or chemoreceptor. Nociceptor or nocireceptor. Baroreceptor is pressure receptor. So what's an example of a pressure sense? Blood pressure. So you have baroreceptors in your heart. You also have baroreceptors in your aorta. You also have baroreceptors in your eyes. And they detect when your blood pressure is high. They say reduces blood pressure, the pressure is high. So when you're anxious before an exam, if you rub your eyes, you're pushing against the bioreceptors. When you rub your eyes, the bioreceptors detect the pressure. They don't know you're adding it artificially. And guess what they do? They say reduce his blood pressure, slow his heart down. And if you have your heart racing high, rub your eyes and you'll see your heart rate will go down.
Mm.
In med school, when they taught us that, we also, before exams, you see everybody start rubbing our eyes. You know, it's going to fool the baroreceptors, the pressure receptors on the back of the eye, to feel that there's pressure in those vessels because you're creating that artificial pressure by pushing the eye, and your heart rate is going to slow down. So that's baroreceptor, receptor for pressure. Next question.
The Babinski reflex is elicited by A, shining light into the eyes, B, tapping the patella tendons, C, tapping the Achilles tendon, D, stroking the soles of the foot.
All right, so for this, you should take some time to go and look up many reflexes, because this is just another example of reflex. So you want to kind of have an idea of them. So for instance, pupillary reflex is the eye, pupil. You shine light in the eye and the pupil does what? Constricts. That's
Right.
pupillary reflex. You are testing oculomotor nerve also. Okay, so that's pupillary reflex. Achilles reflex, we talked about earlier on today. There was another question on that. When you tap the Achilles tendon, and then there's the ankle, the movement of the leg, ankle. So that's Achilles reflex. Babinski reflex is a reflex done on babies or paralyzed people. If you have a baby, you stroke his foot. You stroke underneath the foot. At that time, the spinal cord is not working well yet. So when it's not working well yet, his foot curls up. The baby's foot curls up. When you become an adult, if they stroke in the baby, when you stroke his foot, the toes fan out. Okay, you just stroke the sole. When you stroke the sole, the toes fan out. And that's because the spinal cord of the baby is not yet active. It's not yet strong. When you become an adult, if they stroke the bottom of your foot, you should curl up. Now, when a person is paralyzed, maybe had a traumatic injury to his spinal cord or his brain is dead, when you want to test in the hospital, we stroke the bottom of your foot. If your foot fans out, we're like, oh shit, his spinal cord is cut. He's just returned to being like a baby. It's fanning out. That's Babinski reflex. The adult, when you're mature spinal cord, when you stroke, it should curl up. So I like to stroke the bottom. Okay. So the other ones, it can be the other ones because the other ones were.
That's you in an Uber? You pay too much money for. Oh,
mind your business. So what are the other ones? What are the other options so we can rule them out?
Sensory tract.
Okay, so
spinal thalamic tract.
We know it's not sensory for the same thing because it's pyramidal, and we know it's going from pyramid down to the spinal cord. That's a descending tract. Descending tracts are motor; they are not sensory. If it's sensory, it's going to be ascending. It's going to say spinopyramidal or spinocortical or spinothalamic or spinocerebral. So we know it's a descending tract. So far, so good.
Right.
Okay. So it's motor, it's descending, so it's not. So the other option there was what?
The other option is also called the spinothalamic tract.
That's an ascending tract. That's totally in another place. It's a different thing. So we are left with corticospinal tract. So the corticospinal tract is coming from the cortex and is going down to the spine to make things happen. And it's pyramidal because I guess it goes to the medullary pyramids. In your medulla, you have pyramids. There are some areas that are like pyramids. So it goes to the medullary pyramids to get, and that's why it crosses over to the other side. Remember, this side of your brain moves this side, and then this side of your brain moves the other. So it crosses around the pyramids of the medulla to the other side. All right, next.
Well, I'm going to do this. What we got up to question number 30. Then I'm going to shut it down for the night. We got like 4 more questions, maybe 31. 4 more questions. We here in New York. It's very busy here in New York. You're in the middle of the woods over there in Atlanta, so you don't really have nothing to do. You know, you can hear the crickets in the background.
When you do this in New York, do you have these kind of places to chill outside and relax?
Yeah, they're called parks.
I don't know how you're suffering. Anyway.
No, I want to move to Atlanta. As soon as I get this paperwork up, I'm gonna move to Atlanta. But,
you're not in New York, right? I thought you were.
He's in the woods. You can hear the crickets and all that stuff.
I ran from New York 3 months ago. I'm done with it.
Yeah, I think I will too.
Yeah, Atlanta's a good town. Atlanta's a
I
very
ran when COVID came. I ran, and then COVID came here, and now I can't come to New York. They say I have to quarantine when I come back. I'm like, wow, I never knew it's gonna switch over.
So you like it better
the
there?
real reason he ran is to get a wife. He can't get no girls in New York. Maybe them country girls give him a play in Atlanta. So we need some cousins. We need some little cousins in the family. We hoping
Shut
that.
up. Next question.
The reflex is stimulated by stroking the soles of the foot with a sharp object. Which reflex is stimulated by stroking the soles of the foot with a sharp object?
Okay.
It's the Babinski. It's the same shit.
Okay.
This reflex is not working. If this reflex is not working, a person is in danger of choking on food. A, the barorecipiter. We know that's not it. B, withdrawal. C, Babinski, or D, the gag reflex.
So just keep refreshing your reflexes information. It's getting easier.
So there's a whole bunch of reflexes that actual subject reflexes.
Yeah, a lot of them, but you're getting used to them now. Now gag, Babinski, the baroreceptor reflex would be like the one I said when you're rubbing your eye, you get a baroreceptor reflex. So
that's the pressure, right?
that's pressure reflex. So you're getting used to them.
Okay.
Next.
Damage to which cranial nerve causes blindness?
All right, which one is that? What's the answer? You don't have to look at the answers. You know them already. Which cranial nerve causes blindness?
2.
So these kind of questions, you should spend 2 seconds. So you spend time thinking on the more deeper questions. Next.
Which cranial nerve is damaged by an ototoxic drug?
We've done that already.
That's 8.
That's 8. Vestibulocochlear.
Vestibulocochlear.
So
what number you on?
Number was that? That was number 32. Answer C. Yeah, that's the right answer. A dilated and fixed pupil indicates pressure on which cranial nerve?
So it's like we're repeating questions we've done before.
Yeah. I'm starting to see there's only about 10 questions, and they just said in different ways.
So what's the answer to that?
C, cranial nerve. Number 3.
Number 3, oculomotor, the eye movement. Right?
Yeah. The gag reflex, let's see. The gag reflex is mediated by which nerve? A, optic nerve, B, oculomotor nerve, C, cranial nerve 8, D, glossopharyngeal nerve. The answer is D, glossopharyngeal nerve.
Okay, so cranial nerve 8 is vestibulocochlear, right? So
yeah.
All right. So these things.
Damage to which nerve causes crutch palsy? And LJ told us, well, I didn't know what the hell crutch palsy was.
Right.
So it's B, the radial nerve.
It's C, axillary.
Axillary.
Yeah.
Even Ojo now knows his stuff. He's answering questions in seconds now. Wow. 10 minutes ago he couldn't. Now he's hot.
I greatly appreciate it. I mean, it's finally,
because you're a good teacher.
Finally worth something after years of. At which structure are spinal nerves grouped and sorted? A, ganglion. B, a nucleus. C, a plexus. D, the caudo-equina.
All right, Ojo, what's the answer to that?
At which structure are spinal nerves grouped?
Who else knows the answer? What's the answer? Plexus.
Yeah.
Yeah, we covered that already.
Okay. LJ, I can't hear you. Or if you wanted to say something, if you were trying to say something, I didn't hear you.
He said plexus. I heard him.
Oh, okay.
So we covered that already. These are the plexus.
You hear me now?
Yeah. If you was trying to say something, I didn't hear you before, bro.
No, I said you missed 36.
Oh,
plexuses are the meeting the junctions where they group and move. So let's look at the other options, the other answers there, because there's something I heard that we haven't covered. Nucleus. What is a nucleus? So there are groups of cell bodies. So your neurons, their cell bodies sometimes are grouped together. You know, it's kind of like at some junctions, the cell bodies, you have a lot of them in a place, and that's where there's some interaction and then some, you know, activity going on between your neurons. So groups of cell bodies, there are two places where they can be. Groups of cell bodies could be outside the spinal cord or inside. Groups of cell bodies inside the spinal cord is called a nucleus. And that's what your brain uses to function. So when you look at in the brain, there are certain areas where you have groups of cell bodies together. And that's where processes are made. And those are called nucleus. So far, so good. So for instance, to control your tongue within the brain, there's a nucleus somewhere. And that nucleus is a bunch of cell bodies. And from there, the axons come out to move your tongue and to do stuff. So groups of cell bodies within the central nervous system is called a nucleus. And if you think of what a group of cell bodies would look like, it's going to be white matter or gray matter. Would a group of cell bodies be white matter or gray matter?
Gray.
Gray. Because white matter is axons with myelin. Myelinated axons is what is white.
And gray matter is the interneurons and the
interneuron bodies.
synapses
And all that going on. So that's gray matter. White matter is just myelinated axon. So if you slice up a brain, on the outside, the surface of gyri is gray. It's a lot of cell bodies. That's where your processes are happening. As you go deeper, it's going to be white because after the process happened on the outside, the gyri, it's going to be a lot of myelinated axons taking it down towards the spinal cord. So within the brain, it's going to look white. Within the white, you're going to see some gray dots. Those are going to be nucleuses where there are some other areas where some more activity is happening. So you have those gray dots within the brain. That's nucleus. So nucleus is a group of cell bodies within the central nervous system. Those are areas where we are getting activity done. Apart from the gray outside. The outside of the brain is gray, the inside is white. The equivalent is called a ganglion. A ganglion is a group of cell bodies outside the CNS that's in the PNS. So sometimes in your PNS, you have a group of cell bodies together, and that's a ganglion. So you may see a question that says a group of cell bodies within the central nervous system is called a nucleus. Another question, a group of cell bodies outside the CNS is called a ganglion. And that is a group of cell bodies.
Same thing. It's the same thing. It's just one is for the central nervous system and one is the peripheral nervous system.
And the example, there was one of the questions I went across earlier where they said, is it the dorsal root ganglion? The dorsal root ganglion is when your sensory neurons are going towards the spinal cord. Before they get to the spinal cord, they have a ganglion. That's one example of a ganglion. There's a ganglion right there, and then it gets in the central cord. There's nothing that happens there, it's just a ganglion. That's an example of a ganglion. Some people have ganglions, like I've seen one of my friends, he had a bump here, and the doctor was like, you have a ganglion. And it was painful because it just has an abnormal group of cell bodies somewhere there. So that's.
How do they remove it?
You can't because it's your cell bodies. If you remove it, yeah, you lose sensation in that area. So, all right, next question.
Where are we at, guys? 38.
I have a question. Is a
38.
ganglion similar to a knot, like a knot in a muscle?
It's like a knot. It's similar, but it's in your nerve area. It's not going to be where a muscle is. So it'll be like a knot, but it'll be somewhere else. You'll be able to move. You'll be able to move it and stuff. It's rare. You know, some people might just have it. You'll be able to move it. It'll be painful, but it's out of nerve area.
Painful.
Painful, yeah. It's going to be very, very painful. But it's rare to have them, you know, popping out and stuff.
The large nerve emerges from the distal end of the spinal cord and innervates the lower extremities. A, pudendal, B, phrenic, C, sciatica, D, radio. The answer is C, sciatic, and we went over the sciatic nerve.
Okay.
So the phrenic nerve, if the phrenic nerve were cut or
So you already know the answer to that question. What
patient
happened to you?
not be able to breathe. We said
Next question.
affect their Both the
We know it comes from the cervical plexus.
trigeminal and facial nerves participate in the blank reflex. A. Gag. D. Babinski. C. Baroreceptor. D. Corneal.
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 So corneal reflex means you're stroking the cornea, right?
Yeah.
I'm eliminating this because I'm not sure. I'm confused between what and what. Corneal and
Yeah, it says both the trigeminal and facial nerves participate in the blank reflex. Gag, Babinski.
okay, so we know it's not gag because that's glossopharyngeal. We know it's not Babinski because that's going to be something maybe
On the bottom of the feet,
bottom of the
right?
foot.
So that's not A or B. Baroreceptor has to do with pressure,
Right.
blood pressure. So it's D, corneal, which I don't know what.
Corneal reflex. Now remember, your trigeminal nerve goes. I always mix up. They are both mixed nerves and they supply a lot of the face. So I always just, this is now they're confused because they're putting the two together. But trigeminal is here and facial is Bell's palsy, paralysis. You are drooping, and stuff. So they are both, that. So that's a likely answer.
All right, so let me go for this last one. A person with damage to the blank has the weakest blink. A, facial nerve. B, vagus nerve. C, cranial nerve 2. D, cranial nerve 8.
All right, so that's a simple question. We know it's facial nerve already. We just talked about that just right now. But the other nerves there are vagus, which we know is the one that if you cut it, you die. And that's the wandering nerve that goes to supply your heart, slows your heart down, supplies your digestive system and everything. So we know it's not vagus. We know it's not 8, which is vestibulocochlear, sound and balance. And we know it's not, what's the other nerve? So that's 2 seconds to answer that question, right?
Okay. Well, I think we did a lot of good progress here today in terms of answering questions. I mean, if you guys want to go through some more questions tomorrow, we definitely
At
can.
what time?
Anytime after class. He's in Atlanta, so it's not like there's anything to do out there. Like, what is he doing? You know what I'm saying? So we're in New York, we could call him and look, he's sitting in the middle of the woods. You can hear the crickets. There's no shorties there, So we will conclude this tomorrow. Thanks a lot for coming through, everybody. LJ, you had a very wonderful Saturday, brother. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, hell yeah.
It was too good, right, LJ?
It was really bad. I should have been studying. I got a whole lot of making up to do.
Listen, but we gonna get it though.
Yeah.
Right?
What have you guys been doing to study with this? You guys just been reading the chapters?
Reading the chapters
reading the
now
chapters in the workbook as
YouTube,
well.
right?
YouTube, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know how about you guys feel, but like the questions, going over the questions with him and him doing the process of elimination.
Breaking it down, yes.
Yeah, it's definitely good.
Did you guys did tomorrow's chapter already?
No.
No, I didn't. And I'm gonna
Did you guys read it yet? I mean, like, did you guys read it yet?
I
No,
did
have
chapter
you?
10 and 11. Sorry.
When I tell you guys, I know the least out of everybody right now. I'm slacking. I'm doing a whole lot of reading tonight and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
If you just really can't, if you really, especially if you're tired, just read the course, the chapter summary at least on all.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna try to read it. I read the whole chapter 11 or whatever. 11. This one, whatever. Which one? Yeah, I did this chapter today.
I had to read chapter 10 like 3-4 times.
Yeah, this isn't. It's not as bad as last test, but it's just like the information is some reason so hard to stick. Like these are just so hard
I had
to
the
stick.
same problem too.
Yeah, we have we have a doctor at our disposal, So
What you said, Jess?
What is chapter 10
This is a crash course. Ain't
Yeah.
nothing to stick. We're just supposed to learn for that moment, test on it, and move on.
Yeah, but it's to the point. Like last test, like nothing. Like that was just ridiculous, right? But this test, I'm reading it and it's like not sticking because it's just not my all these numbers and stuff throwing me off. Like, not only I gotta know the name, I gotta know the number too. That mnemonic he developed, the to touch it. What is it? Finish that for me. I'm writing it down. I really like that mnemonic.
To touch and feel very good vagina.
That one is like, now it's vulgar. It's vulgar, but it's really effective.
It is. To touch and feel.
What is it?
Vagina.
Vagina. Heaven.
To touch and feel a good vagina.
Very good vagina.
A very good vagina.
Good.
There's no age, just very good vagina.
How about the age? Oh, yeah.
I don't know of any bad one.
Second formula is LR6SO4.
LR6SO4.
R3. And that gives you all the eye movers. LR6.
So we definitely have to know all 12.
Wait, say it again. Say it again for the eye movers.
LR6SO4 R3.
Okay, text me that.
LR.
Yeah, please text it to me.
Wait, hold on, guys. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to listen for 1 second. You said LR. I'm sorry. You speak. I'm listening.
Yeah, LR6SO4 R3.
Do you mind explaining to me what those mean? Exactly.
Lateral rectus. The eye has, most of the eye muscles are called rectus.
Yeah.
There's an oblique one that moves the eye outward, but
okay.
So lateral rectus muscle moves the eyes laterally is cranial nerve 6, LR6. SO4, the superior oblique muscle is cranial nerve 4, which is abducens. R3, all the rest are cranial nerve 3, oculomotor, eye mover, oculomotor, eye mover. So
okay.
The medial rectus, the inferior rectus, superior rectus, all the rest are cranial nerve 3. So that covers 3 cranial nerves right there. Lateral rectus 6, superior oblique 4, and all the rest 3, cranial nerve 3.
Okay. And so and those are the only 2 mnemonics you used?
Those are the only 2 for cranial nerves. That's
okay.
it. So they are good.
You saw the one I sent you? That I sent the group with the face?
What this? Oh yeah, wait. What was that?
That should help.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I've been spinning. Oh wow, that looks good too.
So guys, I recorded this whole thing is being recorded. I don't know how I'm gonna try to load it and then
try and load, send it to us.
Yeah,
That's gonna be a lot of gigs.
It's gonna be it's right. They have an option to record it to the cloud, or they have an option to record it directly to your laptop. And the cloud was like some extra money they wanted to charge.
Yeah. You have to do your laptop.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to upload it to YouTube or something, and then erase it from my laptop. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's important that we replay these shits so that we know. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna need this one.
Huh?
I'm gonna need this one for sure.
We gonna need this one. Send it over.
Yeah. I'll try to figure it out, guys, and I'll
okay.
Everybody.
So it's to touch and feel a very good vagina or heaven.
Yeah, remove the A. There's no A there. To touch and feel very good vagina. Heaven.
To touch and feel very good vagina.
I'm gonna text it. I'm gonna text it right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Hopefully the girls don't think it's some craziness.
Yeah.
But there's
other
another
female
one,
students that are not involved, you're gonna get Bill Cosby. They're gonna be like, "Oh, this guy, he told me he wanted to touch my vagina, and I feel good."
All right, guys. I'm gonna go watch some.
All right.
Everybody have a good night.
All right,
guys. Bye. And
thank you so much. Thank you for taking your time out of the day to teach us. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Well,
That's
Hi.
Take care.